He was nearly executed. Blindfolded, lined up, rifles raised, the order was given, then suddenly revoked. A pardon, delivered at the final second. For the rest of his life, Fyodor Dostoevsky carried death inside him. Every page he wrote trembles with the weight of that moment, of knowing, truly knowing, how close the end can be. His words are not polished or perfect. They are frantic, messy, sometimes feverish, but they are alive. They bleed. This wasn't a man writing for applause. He was writing because he had no other choice. Dostoevsky didn't write stories. He cracked people open. His characters whisper, argue, hallucinate, confess. They lie to themselves. They beg for answers. And they spiral, beautifully, painfully, into pieces. He gave voice to the parts of us we pretend aren't there. The part that sabotages everything just to feel in control. The part that yearns to suffer, just to feel alive. The part that doubts even our best intentions. And he saw, long before we did, that comfort would not save us, that progress would not fulfill us, that knowledge without meaning would leave us lonelier than before. He survived Siberia, epilepsy, addiction, poverty, loss. And through it all, he wrote like a man possessed, not by demons, but by questions. What is a good man? What does it mean to be free? Can you still believe in something after it breaks you? He didn't offer answers. He offered mirrors. In Notes from Underground, he gave us the most brutally honest narrator in literature. A man so aware of his own contradictions that he chooses misery just to prove he's still free. In Crime and Punishment, he showed us how ideas, abstract, noble, logical ideas, can drive a man to murder, and how guilt is not a punishment, but a slow form of awakening. His books are cathedrals of chaos, not neat, not moralizing, but human. And the strange thing is, if you read him today, it doesn't feel like reading a dead Russian novelist. It feels like being watched, because somehow, his characters sound like us, angry, addicted, lost, grasping for something true in a world full of noise, obsessed with appearances, terrified of meaninglessness, willing to destroy ourselves, just to prove we're free. You consume, you swipe, you argue, you ache. And beneath all of it, a whisper. Dostoevsky saw what we're living through now. Loneliness in crowds, the idolization of control, the collapse of meaning in a world that claims to offer everything. And if you listen closely, he's still speaking, not from a mountaintop, not with perfect clarity, but from the depths of suffering, of complexity, of the very soul. This isn't a video about novels. It's a descent. And if you're willing to go there, you might just come back with something true. Because Dostoevsky didn't write for scholars. He wrote for the human condition, yours included. And if you look closely, his work doesn't just describe pain. It dares to give it meaning. So from here, we descend further into the first idea, the one we're told to run from, suffering. What if it's not the enemy? The meaning of suffering. You are taught to silence it, the pain, the sadness, the ache that shows up for no reason. You are taught to manage it, track it, numb it, give it a label, give it a pill, give it a TED Talk, and somewhere along the way, suffering stopped being a part of life and started being seen as a malfunction. As if the moment you feel bad, something must be broken. You must need fixing. But Dostoevsky didn't believe that. He believed that suffering wasn't just real. It was necessary, essential, a furnace through which the soul is shaped. For him, pain wasn't a bug in the system. It was the system. His characters aren't saved from suffering. They're destroyed by it. And then, sometimes, reborn. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov doesn't find peace after escaping punishment. He finds peace through guilt, through collapse, through confrontation with the self. He is not healed by society. He is broken by the truth of what he's done, and only then begins to transform. In The Idiot, Prince Mishkin, gentle, kind, childlike, suffers constantly. His goodness doesn't protect him. It isolates him, but it also makes him the only one in the novel who still feels real compassion. Dostoevsky saw suffering as a kind of inner honesty. When you suffer, you can't lie to yourself in the same way. Your mask slips, your priorities shift, you stop playing the game. And in that moment, if you're brave enough, you might see what's underneath. Today, we call this pain disorder. We pathologize it, we medicate it, and sometimes, yes, that saves lives. But Dostoevsky warns us, if you remove all suffering from the human experience, you may also remove the depth. You may lose the part of you that is still reaching for something real, something sacred. In our culture, pain is seen as a glitch. But Dostoevsky asks, what if pain is the only thing left that tells the truth? What if it's the only time you stop lying? To yourself, to others, to the world. You weren't meant to feel good all the time. That's not the point. The point is to feel, deeply, fully, even when it hurts. We're so quick to rush past discomfort, to drown it in noise, to click away. But Dostoevsky invites us to pause, to sit in it. Because if we dare to suffer, we might just emerge different, not cleaner, perhaps not even happier, but more human. And perhaps that is the beginning of healing. Not escape, but transformation. Clarity as a result of surrender. And maybe this is what we've misunderstood most. The myth of constant happiness. The myth that peace and joy are permanent states we're failing to maintain. But even joy needs contrast. You can't feel the sunrise if you've never walked through night. You wouldn't recognize beauty if your life was always lit in gold. The highs only mean something because of the lows. It cannot always be ecstasy. It shouldn't be. And this might sound obvious, but look at how we live. We chase stimulation like it's oxygen. We swipe and scroll and treat boredom like death. But life isn't meant to be constant bliss. It's meant to move, and suffering, while cruel and unwanted, carves out space for something deeper. This doesn't mean we go looking for it, only that when it finds us, we don't have to panic. Sometimes it's the only thing real enough to break through the noise. And in a strange way, that makes it sacred. Now, this isn't to say we reject modern tools for healing, but there's something worth noting here. A quiet paradox in the way we treat mental health. It's not Dostoevsky's idea, but one that echoes through his worldview. That in today's world, many are over-medicated, given quick-fix medication not because it's best, but because it's fast. The ones who show up, who cry out, who say something's wrong. They're often handed prescriptions when what they truly need is deeper work. Community, reflection, exercise. But on the other end, there are those who never ask for help, who mask their pain in silence, who smile and say they're fine, and no one sees how much they're carrying. They remain under-medicated, not because they don't need support, but because they've convinced everyone, even themselves, that they don't. Which end of the spectrum do you see yourself? Let me know in the comments which side of this pendulum you relate to the most. But the truth is, neither extreme is perfect. The ideal lies somewhere between, not in glorifying suffering and not in medicating it away, but in facing it honestly, with help, with awareness, with courage. And if you've been through it, you know what I mean. Think about your own life, the moments you were shaken, the times life didn't go according to plan. Did those moments not leave something behind? Some form of growth, strength, a shift in your soul. You didn't ask for the pain. You wouldn't wish it back. But still, Can you say it left you unchanged? That's the strange gift here. Not that suffering is desirable, but it shapes you, it teaches you. It burns away illusion and leaves behind something more real. And if suffering has this kind of power, to wake us, refine us, rebuild us, then maybe we need to rethink how we see people in pain. Not as broken, not as weak, but as becoming. Now pause for a second and comment below the memory you're thinking of right now that caused you to suffer, but looking back, taught you a whole lot. Let's start a genuine conversation and build a community willing to share, willing to admit that we haven't got it all figured out. And if you're enjoying the content, consider subscribing. There's new episodes released every week. Now, let's jump back into Dostoevsky's mind. If it's true, if we are shaped by pain, then what about the parts of us that cause it? The darkness we carry, the contradictions we hide, the chaos within. What if we're not just shaped by suffering, but by the things we're afraid to admit live inside us? And that brings us on to the next idea. Moral ambiguity and the duality of man. You want to believe you're one thing, good, kind, clear in your values, consistent in your actions. You want to believe that you always know the right side to be on, in politics, in arguments, in life. But if you're honest, you've felt the other side too. The anger, the envy, the moments you've said something cruel and meant it. The moments you've watched someone suffer and felt nothing. And then you've turned around and done something deeply kind. Held someone when they were breaking. Given more than you had. Loved without reason. So, which one is the real you? The truth is, both. And this is what Dostoevsky understood better than anyone. That to be human is to carry contradiction, to house both monster and saint, light and shadow, logic and impulse. His characters don't behave the way they should. They behave the way people do. Raskolnikov commits murder believing it's a righteous philosophical act, and is then slowly shattered by guilt. Ivan Karamazov is brilliant, moral, rational, and yet watches the world fall apart around him as he slowly disconnects from meaning. There are no saints, no devils, just people, bleeding, changing, collapsing, and rising again. And yet, look at how we treat each other today. A single comment, a mistake, a bad take, and someone becomes unforgivable. We don't allow people to evolve. We don't allow complexity. Everything must be black or white, good or evil, cancelled or applauded. We even do this with politics. We pick a side, left, right, east, west, and label it good. We point to the opposition and label it bad. But the truth is always more complicated. History is full of blurred lines, unintended consequences, flawed heroes, and well-intentioned villains. Still, it's comforting to pretend it's simple. It feels safe to believe that the side we've chosen is pure, that we're on the side of justice, of reason, of progress. But Dostoevsky would urge us to look deeper, to ask harder questions. Because reducing the world to good versus evil is not wisdom, it's retreat. It's a way of shielding ourselves from the pain of nuance. And in doing so, we miss the full picture. And deep down, we know it. A polished worldview. Online, we wear masks. We play roles. We present one polished slice of ourselves and pray no one sees the rest. But behind the feed, everyone is cracked. Everyone is struggling. And in this effort to be clean, we become hollow. Afraid to admit what we feel. Afraid to change our minds. Afraid to say, I don't know. But Dostoevsky reminds us, the most honest thing you can do is confess your conflict, to admit that you're torn, because only then can you begin to integrate it. Have you never judged someone, then later realized you were wrong? Have you never hurt someone and felt sick about it for months? Have you never done something selfish and then given everything to make it right? You're not a brand, you are a battlefield, and your goal is not to be perfect, but to be whole. Dostoevsky's genius wasn't just in showing this, it was in sitting with it. Letting you watch a man wrestle with his conscience for 500 pages. Not to entertain, but to expose something we spend our whole lives avoiding. That the hardest part of being human is being two things at once. And yet, this inner conflict might just be where our depth comes from. Not the resolution, but the tension, the ache of wanting to be good, and knowing you're not always, and still trying anyway. That's not failure, that's humanity. And it's what makes your story worth telling. But when we're forced to hide this, when we're asked to simplify, to filter, to flatten ourselves into likable fragments, something breaks. We become strangers to our own souls, and nowhere is that more apparent than in the world we've built now, where we can talk to hundreds of people in a day and still feel completely alone. Dostoevsky's work seamlessly links to how we've created a world suffering from loneliness and alienation. Social media addiction, endless noise, but no connection. We'll save this deep dive for another video on this brilliant mind. But for now, let's recap. What have we really learned here? That suffering, while unwelcome, is often the only thing honest enough to break through the noise. That without it, joy has no contrast, and meaning no weight. That the parts of you try to hide, the contradictions, the moral failures, the regret, they're not disqualifications from being human. They're proof that you are. And Dostoevsky knew this. He didn't try to fix you. He mirrored you. His stories were never clean, never comfortable. But they were real. They let you feel the heat of shame, the tremble of faith, the quiet ache of choosing love anyway. Because the goal was never perfection. It was to see yourself clearly, even when it hurts. Especially then. And if you've ever felt at war with yourself, torn between who you are and who you think you should be, then maybe this isn't your failure. Maybe it's just your starting point, because you're not a finished product. You're a question mark, a living tension between darkness and light. You're still unfolding, and if that feels painful, good, that means it matters. You don't have to tie it all together. You don't have to make sense of it yet. Just stay with it. Stay in the complexity, the contradiction, the ache. Because maybe the point isn't to escape it, but to learn how to breathe there. And if it ever feels like no one else understands, remember this: Dostoevsky did. And in a world that demands answers, he gave us something better. A mirror, a warning, and a quiet whisper. You're not alone.